and I think you have to accept.
Oh, do I? I have to.
Good morning. My name is David Jones, and today's guest is Susan Stasiak. Susan is a member of my Toastmaster Club, and I'm going to ask her a few questions. To start with, tell me a little bit about the book that you've been working on.
Well, thank you, David. This book, and this is a great place to talk about it. This book has been occupying my life for 5 years.
Mhm.
It was from a suggestion, a Toastmaster suggestion, when I would say about maybe 10 years ago, when Chuck was just beginning to be sick. He was diagnosed with dementia and had two other comorbidities. I started writing speeches as a cathartic way of expressing what was going on with me. And because it's a scary diagnosis, a life-threatening diagnosis like cancer, that dementia is, going to end in death. So I shared that, of course, with our group, our Toastmaster Club, Franklin Club, and they were pleased with what I said because it was mostly inspirational. It wasn't in the dredges yet, because I wasn't in the dredges. I was just dealing with my thoughts. And someone, it happened to be Cindy Golden, suggested that I write a book. And I thought, sure, that's a good idea. So as I was writing the book, Chuck was still alive, and I was taking things fresh off the press, so to speak, with him and writing about them. And that helped me deal with the situation. So that's how that book got started. About, I would say, at least 8 years ago.
So is it completed now, or are you still working on it?
I am still working on it. I'm in the third edit
Okay.
with professional editors that I've hired to help me. It's people, if you haven't written a book like this, a memoir in particular, you have no idea how long it takes. And I am not a good writer in regard to memoir writing. I was a pretty good writer in regard to instructional writing. So this is huge, a huge difference. Plus, it has to bring out, help the reader understand the emotions that are going on, because that's the basics here in this. It's a message about having agency over our emotions, because the emotional part of especially dealing with dementia is very radical and very up and very challenged for the caregiver. In fact, the statistics from the National Health Institute of Health suggest 18 to 21% of the caregivers die before the care recipient. So the stress is huge, and it's carried on and on over the years because sometimes we just don't have time to release it. So respite has become a really important tool that cities, towns, states are looking into to help caregivers.
So do you see caregivers as being the target audience for your book?
Very much so. In fact, dementia caregivers, specifically the millennials, because 73%, according to Harvard research studies, 73% of the workers in organizations, corporations, are also balancing some kind of family at home care for either a parent or even a child. And so their stakes are on the line, and they're actually the largest amount of caregivers. The people my age and older are perhaps maybe 10 to 15% of the caregivers. But so with the caregiving truths or practices that I share in this book can easily help the stress level of these millennials as well as the older generation.
Tell us a little bit about about some of the seminars that you've done?
Since I've been a aspiring author with this book, I've done a lot of seminars actually. I started out with a invitation to go to DC for the called Well Spouse Association, which was the spouses of all people that are handling any kind of, not just dementia, but any kind of diseases for their spouse. And then COVID hit. So we canceled that. My daughter was going to go with me. And we did things over Zoom, which was convenient, but not as spicy. And I enjoyed that a lot, though. I used my tools from my 25, 30 years of training. I was able to whip up PowerPoints and take some of the dialogue and the narrative from my actual writing into a step-by-step, this is the process we go to, and turned it more into a training session with the fact that I had 7 years of experience on the front line with caregiving. So that was fun. And it was last year in June that I was invited to speak in front of a nice, large, probably about 100 caregivers who were sponsored by the Area Agency on Aging in Illinois, at Springfield, Illinois, actually. And I was to bring the message, I was the keynoter, to bring the message of how much caregivers are valued. So I got to use my little bit of training along with my inspirational, and it was lovely. And that was one of the big acid tests for me about the message, because after that was over, people were in tears. People, people wanted to hug me. It was really very touching for me to be able to present my experience in a very simplistic, understandable way, because some of it is a little bit advanced in terms of using the mind to quell our stress. But they got it. And I was just so pleased. And I felt like it was my calling. And I had been feeling that way. But when I went there, I was quite nervous. And once I got in front of them and started doing what I learned in Toastmasters over the years, not just the Toastmaster, but actually the big X experience, it was wonderful. I just got so much gratification from that.
Okay, so the feedback you've got from your seminars, how has it impacted or helped others? Have you received word after the people have left the seminar and later on?
Yes, I have. I have actually pulled out, if I can find it, David, I pulled out just some quotes that I had. And maybe I don't have it. So one of the things that these folks have said is this is not your usual self-help for caregivers, which is typically lifestyle issues. Like do exercise, get your rest, um, eat well, maybe a bubble bath or two. That is all good. But what they understood when I got to the caring for your mind, they understood that this was something different and something that wasn't difficult to attain because it's here. You don't have to go somewhere to do it. You don't have to take too much time to do it. So I got feedback like things that, let's see if I can find it for you. Many of our members liked and appreciated what you had to say. One person recently reached out to us and credited your presentation with her courage to come forward for help with her specific issues. Thanks again for look forward to working with you in the future. That was Parkinson's group. And another woman who actually happened to be a part of this was a participant. I learned later she was actually had Parkinson's, and she said that your messages were clear and compassionate. And I could relate She said, as a Parkinson's patient, I attended two webinars to educate myself on the many challenges my caregivers are facing. As a bonus, I also found ways to help me address the stress and the doubt that arise in living with a chronic disease. And I don't want to go through all of them, but I remembered to capture them so I could use them. So that's in the proposal. There's a bunch of them. But they did sense that they had not heard this applied to caregiving before, because as I said, it was more about lifestyle adjustments, which are all good. And I'm the poster child like you are for this. And we do it because it's good for us.
Tell me a little bit about the jobs that you've held in your life.
Oh, before this, you mean
Yeah,
before this?
yeah.
All right. So I'll start at the beginning. Other than mowing grass and babysitting, my first real job after college was a classroom teacher. I taught math and science. And in that science, I taught health and science in at a junior high level. And then I moved into a textbook publishing, and I was an editor for an elementary, junior high textbook series called, I can't remember that, Action and Science or something like that, Action and Science. It was a hit. And I worked with a team of four other editors to write mostly actually the lower grades. We actually wrote the words, but the concepts were, of course, presented by the authors, and they were PhDs teaching in colleges to young teachers about science or whatever they were teaching that related to this. And it's people don't know this, but textbook companies go through authors, series of authors until they get the right type of author that, or series of authors, group of authors that fit for their market. So they were fitting the authors into what they had in their marketplace. So that was very interesting. And I was there for probably 5 or 6 years. Then I did a brief stint in fundraising. And then I went into my own business and actually started out with customer service training, which years ago when I got started with that was just getting started. How to educate the front line on dealing with customers. And that expanded into how to help the supervisors deal with the front line. And that expanded into how to help the culture of the organization change up some of the bottlenecks that they had in their organization that's causing customer problems. So it broadened and we got into team building. And I say we because I usually partnered up with one or two other people if that was their area of expertise, especially like in the medical area or one of our Toastmasters from Ohio State University I was doing some training for the police in Springfield, Ohio, and it was community-based customer service. And this Toastmaster person knew a lot about that. And he was a male, unfortunately, because otherwise I don't think I would have been uh, looked as qualified as he did, not because of his maleness, that was part of it, but because he had done some work with the police and community-based building of customers. So I've teamed up with people like that, and they taught me along the way. This is before they even had training for training, how to be a trainer, before they had organizational development, PhDs or whatever level. So that was kind of fun to kind of be and I was able to provide those kinds of things, team development and employee orientation and just feedback about 360s in the workplace. All of that was just beginning, and I was getting into it myself as a consultant. And it was really fine. And I went from some Fortune 500 businesses to like nationwide to provide even simple groups, not simple groups, but smaller groups that had, like the county, our county in Franklin County had a child welfare system. And I was doing training for the caregivers, believe it or not. I didn't know how this was going to amount to anything. And they were caring for their foster children, many of which were the grandparents of the children or the aunts and uncles of the children. And I remember one time they asked me to do something on stress management, so I titled it Care for the Caregiver. And little did I know, and this was 20 years ago, little did I know that was going to be an avenue. So that's that's some of my business.
Very interesting. Now, next, how long have you been in Toastmasters and what has it meant to you?
Wow. I have been in Toastmasters probably over 30 years. National, international doesn't say that because there was a 5-year lapse that I had in there, and it says whatever year I came back into. But that Toastmasters helped me with all of what you just heard in my own business. I started my own business in the mid or late in 1980s. And I was very nervous because I was really mostly the host, not the actual presenter. And somebody suggested Toastmasters, and I said, okay. And I showed up. Franklin Club was highly recommended, so I showed up. And not only did people give me the opportunity to speak and learn and grow, they supported me on an emotional, personal level. I had just gone through a divorce. I had my children leaving the house, empty nest, which was, it's a huge, it's a,
Mhm.
and I had like this new business. So it was Toastmasters. They were one of several groups that I attended that really helped me. And as I said, some of the people in Toastmasters actually worked with me. Some of the people in Toastmasters referred me to businesses that I could give my training to. So I have high regards and a lot of gratitude toward the system. It works.
So, what do you see doing next? Is it mostly just finishing your book, doing more seminars?
Yeah.
What do you have in mind?
I'd love to get this. The book finished is not the important piece. The important piece is getting the proposal out there and getting either an agent or a publisher directly to publish the book. And in nonfiction, they sometimes like the book unfinished so they can, like I said, with my previous experience in the textbook field, they can model it after their market. So I have a vision of my market, but the publisher may have a more distinct vision
Hmm.
of their market and see how it might fit and craft the actual narrative, the book manuscript around that vision. So that's important. And I am thrilled after having, especially this area agency on aging 100 caregivers group that hugged me and cried. I'm thrilled to go back to people like that because it just like you, David, it just makes such a gratifying experience to share our experiences, difficult it is with the loss of a spouse, to share that and see benefit from that. So I'm all for that. And that's the direction I'm going. In my proposal, I have to write other books. I have to identify other books that I might be willing to write. And those that I have identified are books that I probably should have written years ago, not necessarily related to caregiving, but they're business books. since I think it's at least $300 billion of loss in workplace with people that are like millennials between work and home, have some kind of responsibility to care for somebody at home. That's where the need is. As I said, there's just maybe 10% my age and older. The need is there, and helping businesses understand the value of having some kind of reprieve or understanding. So it's a culture change as well as a training at the front line, not just with the people that have the caregiving responsibilities, but their peers who have to cover for them, how we can team them together. So those would be the avenues that I think, and right up my alley, actually, right up my alley. And I want to be like all these women who have lived into their 90s and they're still contributing. I want to do that. That's what I want.
That's wonderful aspiration. Let's hope it comes to fruition and that I can be there to see it too.
Yeah, you probably would be.
Well, nobody knows.
No, you're right. You're right.
But this has been a wonderful interview. Thank you very much. So let me stop the recording now. If I can figure out how to do that. Nope. Let's see here. There it is.